So today we're going to talk about air, specifically air, the Hermetic Kabbalistic worldview of air, and we're going to be talking about a little bit of the tarot correspondences of the cards associated with air. All of the cards associated with air. And we're mostly going to be talking about the tarot because the tarot is the easiest way for me to demonstrate a point. That point being that the cards associated with air are good in moderation, or when they're doing new things, but they're not really good when they're used in an excessive amount. And even then, due to the nature of the cards associated with air, we're going to find that there's a very, very, very key note that we're going to be using. All cards associated with air that are not major arcana are going to have a massive negative quality to them. And we're going to start backwards and work our way up to the major arcana. So, starting from the bottom, we're going with 10 of Swords. 10 of Swords is an excessive amount of air. Swords are air. 10 of Swords is the most amount of air you can get on a card. Therefore, we see that this is the card that is most associated with problems. This card's translation from the GD is ruin, and it is not a pleasant-looking affair. If anyone gets a 10 of Swords card in a reading, it's going to be almost objectively negative, depending on how things go. Or they're going to have an excessive amount and they're going to hate it. The card going up is Despair and Doubt, also known as 9 of Swords. This is a man looking in his bed in pain or in some kind of agony, mental distress most likely, and he is uncertain about the future, and he is in quite a bit of turmoil or some kind of sadness. This card shows us that even just a little bit less, and you're still having that negative quality to it. Fun fact, this card's correspondence in tarot is Mars in Gemini, which is amusing because that would imply that these little lies that Gemini tells are actually hurting somebody. Going one card back, we end up finding the card of 8 of Swords. This card is about being paralyzed and unable to move. This card could effectively mean decision paralysis, as you could make the argument that this woman could move if she was doing this standard just check around with your feet. That being said, she's not going to do that because she thinks she's totally trapped. The mental prison here is more powerful than the physical prison, which is what this card normally represents in a reading. 7 of Swords is a tricky person because he's trying to steal things, or he's trying to get away with doing things that he shouldn't be doing. He's trying to sneak away, or he's actually just trying to do things in a very, 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 very unstable manner. It's not necessarily that he's just trying to steal things. He could also be just trying to do things in a way that is not really doing his best. Either way, there is a very, very clear explanation that this man is not doing what he should be doing, and he should probably stop. The card before this is one of the few good cards associated with the Swords Tarot. The Minor Arcana, that is. That would be the 6 of Swords, which is the worst cards associated with the number 6 in the tarot. Seriously, if you look at any other card with the number 6 on it in the tarot, you'll find that this card is the worst of them all. That being said, this card isn't that bad by Swords, apparently. You'll notice that this card represents a long and arduous journey. That being said, the journey will be fine, but people think that they might be in trouble because of the swords in the boat. That's totally fine, and it's going to be a fine journey, it's just going to be a long and hard one. Going up, we have a card that is straight up defeat. Yes, a person walking away from another person and somebody laughing at them. This is some kind of competition, it's normally a breakup between friends. It's not normally a good card because it's an endings card. That being said, it's not necessarily the worst card in the world. I mean, C10 of Swords. Going up one card above that, we actually have to look at the astrological correspondence by the GD standards to understand why this card is named what it is. This card is actually named Peace Restored, and this card's astrological correspondences are going to be Jupiter of Libra. If Jupiter is in Libra, Jupiter can't make up their mind, and Libra can't make up its mind by default. So when you expand the unable to make up their mind nature of Libra, you get this card, where they have made so little decisions that they ended up dying, and then the peace is restored because they have finally found balance in death. The next card is Three of Swords, a card that is associated with heartbreak and sorrow, and Saturn in Libra, which is amusing because that is a planet in exaltation. It's amusing that this planet being so sad is one of the exalted planets of Saturn. That being said, makes a little bit more sense when you delve into the astrology, which I'm not going to do. That being said, we're going to move on to the next card, which is the best card that is shorter than the Ace of Swords in the entire Swords Pantheon, that being Balance. This sword is mostly balance, and it is mostly just going to be a card that is everything is balanced in motion, and your thoughts are going to be stable. This is the most stable of all the cards, and while you have the most limited number of swords, it's one of the best cards. Moving on to the Ace of Swords, we have the card that is actually the best swords card. This card represents beginnings and justice, depending on how it goes. This card being guard having one of the only crowns out of the kings. Being a king, it's king's card. It's going to have the most potent powers of air, and it is the seat of the powers of air. Amusingly, we find that the crown is actually one of the parts of the powers of air. Who knew? Anyone who studies Kabbalah. Moving on, we have the first major arcana, which is going to be the Fool card. The Fool card is primal air. It is new beginnings, and it is going to represent us starting anew, and it's going to represent mental thought processes, which is one of the things that we're going to see on the card by the fact that the Fool card is actually going to jump off a cliff. The next card associated with the air signs in the major arcana is going to be the Lovers card, which is Gemini. Gemini is going to show us that the air signs are actually not that bad. This card actually represents the only good thing about the sign of Gemini, fun fact. And it's going to be the alchemical wedding that is so often described in the alchemical texts and in the old grimoires. You could look at this as a HDA operation, but you would be wrong because that angel is Raphael, and you're not actually going to have Raphael as your HDA. I don't care who you are, you're not. The next card we have to look at when we're dealing with the air elementals is we're going to have to look at the Justice card, which is Libra. Libra being in full effect as Libra, the balancing scales here, this card represents all of the justice-y bits about air. Yes, Libra is the legalistic sign. That's one of the reasons it can't make up its mind, because it has to go through all the paperwork and the bureaucracy. What, did you think Libra couldn't make up its mind because it was balancing the options? It was. It was also balancing legal textbooks. You're welcome, Libras. There's your good word for the day. Moving on, we have to go to the most interesting of all the signs associated with air, that being Aquarius, which is the star. Hilariously, we're going to look at the cupbearer, as the cupbearer is actually indicated in this sign. However, looking at the astrology, we would notice that Aquarius is supposed to be a masculine sign, and this card has a feminine person. What gives? Well, you didn't complain during this Justice card in Libra, and Gemini has all three of the things, so it has man, woman, and an angel. Are you going to complain there? No, you're not. Here's the deal. This card represents kind of the raw powers of the imagination and the human spirit going into things. And as such, it is kind of sort of balancing things, and you get what you put out. The more imaginative and creative you are, the more imaginative and creative the result is going to be. And as we continue on with these cards, you're going to notice that I've left out significant portions of their definitions and their tarot correspondences. That being said, this is the first video with homework. No, it's not. You don't actually have to do this, but you should be doing this anyways. You should be meditating upon a card every day in order to get the tarot correspondences. This will cause you to get some very interesting correspondences into your head, and you will understand cards better in a personal sense. For example, you could very easily see the Fool as a guy going, fuck it. And that is a correspondence I got one time. It was a very interesting card, and it was a very interesting meditation, but it was a very fuck it kind of day. And that was the way I described it, and that was how it's going to be. And now I'm going to end the video. Please like, subscribe, comment on things that you would like to ask me questions about, and or comments you would like to see for future videos. Thank you. Bye-bye.